All right, Commanders fans, before we dive into this one, hit that like button, subscribe to Commanders HQ, and drop a comment letting us know. Would you take the biggest defensive star from our biggest rival if the chance came along? Because today, we're talking about a scenario that's got social media buzzing. The Washington Commanders being named as a shock potential trade destination for Micah Parsons. Yeah, you heard that right. When NFL.com's Eric Edholm dropped his list of possible landing spots for Cowboys linebacker Micah Parsons, Commanders fans did a double take. Washington? On a list for a guy who's not just the Cowboys' best defender, but arguably one of the most feared pass rushers in the league? On paper, it sounds impossible. Dallas trading a generational talent within the division? That's like lending your rival your playbook and your best player at the same time. Edholm himself admits the odds are slim to none. But here's the thing. He also says it would make major sense for the Commanders. Why? Because even after Adam Peters went on his aggressive off-season spree, Washington still doesn't have that one true game-wrecking defender who forces offensive coordinators to lose sleep. And who fits that bill better than Micah Parsons? Here's where this fantasy gets interesting. Parsons and Dan Quinn aren't just coach and player. They're a proven duo. Under Quinn's leadership in Dallas, the Cowboys had a top 10 scoring defense 3 years running, and Parsons went from exciting rookie to full-blown superstar. Quinn knows how to unlock every ounce of Parsons' potential, and Parsons clearly respects Quinn's style. The mutual respect is real, and that's not me speculating. That's coming straight from people close to the situation. If the impossible ever became possible, you can bet Quinn would be on the phone before the ink on the trade request dried. Now let's keep it real. As long as Parsons is wearing a star on his helmet, he's not coming to Washington. The Cowboys aren't in the business of making life easier for an ascending team within the division. Edholm's words, not mine. But here's where Commanders fans can still find some silver lining. There's a real chance Parsons leaves the NFC East one day. That means fewer Sundays where Jaden Daniels has to worry about him blowing up the backfield, and fewer games where Laramie Tunsil is locked in a chess match with one of the league's elite edge threats. And if that day ever comes, and Parsons somehow lands in D.C., you might as well shut down Pennsylvania Avenue for a parade. While Parsons to Washington is stuck in the dream scenario column for now, there has been a major real-world addition to the defense, and it comes in the form of a future Hall of Famer, Von Miller. Yes, 36-year-old, two-time Super Bowl champ Von Miller. The man could have chosen anywhere to chase one more ring, and he picked Washington. Why? According to Miller, it's simple. Dan Quinn. Miller signed a one-year, $6.1 million deal with incentives that could push it to $10.5 million. And even though he's missed 15 games in the last 3 seasons, he says this is the best he's felt 2 weeks into training camp in his entire career. Not the best shape of his life. He made sure to be honest about that. But the best he's felt? And it all comes back to Quinn's approach. DQ doesn't have pride or ego about camp, Miller said. He's not trying to make guys hard just for the sake of it. He just wants us healthy, sharp on the playbook, sharp on assignments. That's the kind of leadership that took Washington from 4-13 in 2023 to 12-5 and an NFC championship game appearance in 2024. Make no mistake, Miller isn't here to be the every-down sack machine he once was. On this stacked defensive front, he's a depth piece. But he's also embracing a role you can't measure in stats. Mentor, motivator, leader. My job is to make sure we have the best team we possibly can have, Miller said. If that's working with young pass rushers, cool. If that's talking to the third-string safety, cool. If that's giving input on special teams, cool. Whatever it takes to win. That's music to a coach's ears, especially when it's coming from a guy who's worn 2 Super Bowl rings and still has the hunger for more. Miller also shared something that really stood out. When he was a young player, the veterans around him weren't always the best listeners. There was a lot of back-in-my-day talk that didn't really connect with younger guys. Now, as the old head, he's flipping that script. He wants to listen first, then guide. And that, Commanders fans, is exactly how you build a locker room that can sustain success. NFL insider Deanna Rossini recently visited Commanders camp, and her takeaway was as blunt as it gets. Yes, she liked what she saw from Jaden Daniels and the offense. Yes, she felt they looked sharper than the defense right now, which, in her words, is how it should be. But there was one glaring thing missing. They miss Terry McLaurin, Rossini said on the Scoop City podcast. I knew it. I saw it. Especially in red zone drills at the end of practice. They need Terry. They saw what I saw. And she's right. McLaurin isn't just a wide receiver. He's the guy defenses have to account for on every single snap. Last year, he caught 13 touchdowns, and that's not even counting the drives he extended just by drawing double coverage. Without him, in those tight, compressed red zone situations, Daniels' options shrink fast. The business side of football now, here's where it gets tricky. According to multiple insiders, including Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, the relationship between McLaurin and the team isn't quite as sunny as both sides are trying to present publicly. Fowler said on the Rambling with Rio podcast, I do think the relationship has been fractured some. Terry was willing to do whatever it takes to make this right in his mind, which is now requesting a trade. You could call that the nuclear option, and he took it. That's heavy. Fowler went on to say McLaurin will keep applying pressure until something changes. And the next step? If things don't move, withholding game checks. That's not a small threat. That's a sign this standoff is more serious than some may want to admit. The gap is. Huge ESPN's Adam Schefter didn't sugarcoat it either. He said the difference between the Commanders' offer and McLaurin's ask is vast. In other words, this isn't a couple of small clauses or incentives away from getting done. The two sides are far apart, and it's going to take real compromise to bridge the gap. Trade talk. Just smoke or fire. Let's be clear. Nobody's saying a McLaurin trade is likely. But the fact it's even being discussed by analysts is telling. Bleacher Report's Christopher Knox made the case that if an extension isn't close, Washington should at least see what's out there on the trade market. His reasoning? McLaurin's set to be a free agent next offseason, and losing him for nothing would be a nightmare. Knox argues that Daniels, if he's truly the elite QB we think he is, could still thrive with a receiving core led by Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown, Luke McCaffrey, Michael Gallup, Zach Ertz, and rookie Jalen Lane. The draft picks from a McLaurin trade could go toward long-term roster building. Why this is a nightmare scenario for the offense look, McLaurin is more than his stats. He's a chemistry guy, a locker room guy, a tone setter. He's been here through the tough years, and now that the team is finally a contender, the idea of him walking away or being shipped off is almost unthinkable for fans. Rossini's point from camp isn't just about talent, it's about trust. Daniels trusts McLaurin. The playbook is built with him in mind. Defenses have to respect him. Without that gravitational pull, the Commanders' offense risks becoming more predictable. The Dan Quinn factor if. There's one wild card here, it's head coach Dan Quinn. His player-first approach and ability to keep a locker room united might be the best shot at holding this thing together. But even Quinn can't sign the checks. That's up to GM Adam Peters and ownership. And Peters has a tough call. Pay top dollar for a receiver who'll be 30 soon, or get aggressive in reshaping. The position for the future. The clock is ticking. Training camp is where chemistry is built. Every day McLaurin isn't on the field, the offense is adjusting without him. And that can work both ways. It might make Daniels more adaptable, or it might make life a lot harder when the real games start. So, here's where we are. Micah Parsons to Washington? Highly unlikely. Unless Jerry Jones wakes up one day in a wildly generous mood. But if he ever leaves Dallas, watch out. Von Miller in burgundy and gold? That's happening right now, and his impact might be bigger off the field than on it. Dan Quinn's culture? It's attracting big names and keeping them invested in the mission. And that mission is clear. Keep building a team that can take the next step and finally bring a Lombardi trophy back to DC. All right, Commanders Nation, your turn. If somehow, someway Micah Parsons became available and the Commanders had the chance to land him, would you do it knowing the price would be massive? And what's your take on Von Miller's role this season? Veteran mentor, situational pass rusher, or both? Smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to Commanders HQ for more insider-style breakdowns, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because if this offseason has taught us anything, it's that in the NFL, nothing is truly impossible.